everyone, and welcome to our office hour session. Today, we are talking about creating collaboration systems with custom templates in FigJam. We're so excited to have you today. Our goal for the next 45 minutes to an hour is that you can start building collaboration systems for your team using FigJam and custom templates specifically in FigJam well enough that you can try making one for one process or one team activity, one meeting activity that makes your team more efficient or consistent. So that's what we're trying to do by the end of today's session. How are we going to tackle this? We are doing intros now. Next, I'll go into a quick overview of what do we mean by collaboration systems? Why are these important? Then we have three wonderful panelists who I'll introduce in just a second, who are going to share examples of the way their teams are building these collaboration systems. Then I'll show you the tactics of how do you go about it. And lastly, we'll dig into a panel discussion and some Q&A. I'm so excited to introduce you to the folks who have joined us for this discussion. First, Olivia, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Pasquinelli. I work at Konrad Group, and the majority of the work that we do is building apps and websites with our clients and doing digital strategy engagement. So we use FigJam a lot across every single client, internal and external as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Olivia. Rodney, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rodney Mann. I'm a UX manager over here at CVENT on our design system and frameworks team, as well as our AI team. Yeah, we use Figma and FigJam a lot. Don't let the title fool you. I am in doing component builds all day and facilitating agile scrums and stuff like that in Figma. By night, I work in not-for-profit education sector.
Jamming with people all over the world, in so many different sectors. Thanks for being here, Rodney. And Brandon, over to you.
Hey, everyone. Lots of people in here. It's pretty fun. Yeah, Brandon Clark, head of product at Turtle. We build design teams for growing companies. And yeah, we are Figma, FigJam people, obviously. That's why I'm here. But yeah, we use it internally for all of our planning and org stuff, but also with our partners and our clients working on projects and strategies. So stoked for today's session.
Thanks, Brandon. We're stoked too. Thanks for being here. Amy's giving you some fire. We're all excited to learn from you all. Thanks for being here. And we will hear these folks' stories in just a minute of how they're building out their templates for their team and the collaboration systems that have become core to their work. With that, I'm going to dig in and start talking about what are collaboration systems, why are they important, and how can we use FigJam in order to start enabling them. So I'm going to head up here. And I'm also going to, during this part of today's session, just hide multiplayer cursors. So that is just so you all aren't distracted by the cursors flying around the screen. And those of you following on the screen share, I'll turn those back on so we can see who's interacting. But just noting that, aren't confused by that. Okay, let's dig in. Figma, as when we're building the product and in our vision, we're always thinking about how can we work better together? How can we simplify and make things more collaborative, more adaptable, similar to the styles that your teams are running? And we recognize that as companies grow, as we have more teams working together, more teammates involved, more different priorities across the company and different teams that are focused on different functions, the processes need to scale, but without a system to align all of these different players, these different tools, these different systems, it often becomes inefficient and you can have inconsistencies throughout the process. When working on Figma, we found that teams are investing in design systems to introduce a better way of working. So design systems help teams be more efficient and consistent as their teams continue to scale. So everyone's aligned on what the design system, what the design should look like and what components we should be using in implementing that design. And a design system is more than just a style guide. So it includes things like UI kits, reusable code, your documentation, your tooling, your process models, and the way things all fit together, along with your established principles and the actual design components themselves. And Figma really, we've seen that Figma has unlocked and helped teams scale design systems. Figma didn't invent design systems, of course, but help teams scale design systems and make them more collaborative by bringing them into the browser by default and making it multiplayer. So we saw that this kind of revolutionized the way that design teams were working together by helping to elevate and scale these design systems with a group and make them more collaborative, make them more useful so that they can unlock those efficiencies and consistency that was so important to the scaling of their teams. And as we saw this unlock and saw design systems do this for design teams and product teams across the board, we got to thinking, how can we unlock the magic of this for more teams? And we are in FigJam now. We introduced FigJam about 3 years ago to help more teams realize that magic of collaborating together in a more whiteboarding space, a more free-form canvas area that you can use and bring in teams who may not be as comfortable working out of Figma. So in FigJam, you can use it for any type of meeting. It doesn't just have to be kind of design work. You can use it for running meetings, for mapping out different processes, for collaborating with your team and concepting different work. But just as we saw with design systems, as companies grow, cross-functional teams of all sorts, not just design and engineers or designs and PMs, cross-functional teams from HR to operations to sales, all of these teams need to collaborate in a growing organization. And again, just like we saw with design teams, without a system to align them, this can become inefficient and inconsistent. So you can start to realize some of those same problems that we saw our design teams facing. And so now I'm suggesting that just like we did with design systems, organizations start investing in collaboration systems. So you might call this something different, but essentially just creating those systems and creating processes for your team to think about the way that you're collaborating together and working with your team. And again, this will help unlock those efficiencies and consistencies the same way that we've seen design systems do for your team. And just like design systems, this isn't just a tool. So I'm not suggesting that FigJam alone is going to become your collaboration system and it will solve all your problems. I'm not making any false promises here. Collaboration systems, just like we saw with design systems, are going to be about more than your tool. So it's going to be about creating standards and practices, communicating those across the org, documenting your processes, creating those workflows and maps so everyone understands how your team works together, as well as having common tools. So the tools, everyone having access to the tools that they need to collaborate, and then having those tools they can use to jump in and collaborate with their teammates. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about collaboration systems. It's taking that same principles, the same ideas that we understood from design systems, and applying that more broadly to the ways that your teams are collaborating as a whole. So thinking about, how are you running team syncs? How are you running all hands? How can you make those more consistent, more engaging, more collaborative, and more accessible to other people in the organization? So FigJam is one part of this, and that's where custom templates come in, because custom templates can help with two components of this collaboration system that you might design for your team. So specifically, we're seeing custom templates become very powerful for creating consistent and efficient processes for things like meeting activities and templates, and then things like process maps, frameworks, workflows, diagramming out the way that your team is working together. So the idea here is that you could document these things in FigJam, save them as a custom template, and then you're able to unlock those efficiencies and consistency for your team. So that's what we're talking about when we were talking about collaboration systems and the problems that it can help solve. And custom templates in FigJam is one tool that you can use in order to start building out and designing those collaboration systems with your team. Great, so with that, now we're going to dig into the examples of Olivia, Brandon, and Rodney to see how they're building out some of these collaboration systems with their team. Again, this is going to look very different for everyone. There's no quote unquote right way to build out your templates or to build out the collaboration systems. It really is dependent to your team style. So even in the icebreaker, I saw one person's style was rigid and another Brandon style was adaptable. Those are very different and they'll be differently applied to your team. It's really what matters for your team. And so here we're going to share 3 examples of what this looks like for 3 different teams. We're hoping you can use this as inspiration and adapt that to what makes sense for your team. So with that, let's dig in. I'd love for you all to tell me which of these types of tools would be most useful for your team. When I realize I'm not spotlighting myself, let me do that. So come over here and let me know of these collaboration systems, which of these tools would be most useful for your team. Go ahead and let us know in that poll. And as you do that, we're going to hop over and start hearing from our panelists. So they're each going to share an example of some of the templates that they've built out that have become these kind of collaboration systems for their team. So it looks like tooling for facilitation and collaboration is pulling ahead as our top, most helpful, most useful component of collaboration systems, also process maps and frameworks, and meeting activities and templates. Luckily, those are the 3 things that we're talking about today. So I'm hoping this will feel very useful for all of you. Thanks so much for replying to that. With that, let's dig in. I'm going to go ahead and unhide this section here and dig in and pass it over to Olivia. Olivia, I'd love to hear from you. Tell us about your templates and the way that you're thinking about these collaboration systems at Konrad Group.
Yeah, so there's 2 reasons why we really wanted to use templates. One, our team was starting to just create like ad hoc activities that were slightly different. So every time that we needed to do one of our activities or get ready for a client presentation or a client workshop, we were making them slightly differently, and we were referencing previous versions and then trying to make it work. So there's that side of it. And then the other side of it was we do a lot of client sessions, and actually we have a lot of clients where we only work in FigJam. We don't use presentations anymore, any other like outside documents. And we needed to make sure that our brand was coming through and we were consistent. For us, what we have here is about 20 different templates. We took a look at the ones that were most important for us and just did an audit across the board of the most common ones. So these are 2 examples of activities that we do pretty regularly in brainstorming sessions and client workshops. So we have in every template this how to use that we would delete before we share with our clients and start the sessions. We kept this continuity with all of the FigJam files around having a little bit of an explanation of how to do the activities so that when we're with clients or people using it for the first time, it's really quick and easy to get started and have those helpful FigJam tools, and then have spaces ready for people to collaborate. Because we have so many of these, we'll pair them together. So when you add additional templates, they'll just add one after the other. So we'll have some kind of higher level workshop structures and then add in the different activity templates that are right for that kind of activity or moment in time with our clients. So you see 2 examples here that are 2 different activities that we might bring into a client workshop, and making sure that we have flexibility built into it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Olivia. And such a great example. I love the kind of different activities that you've built into these, of just having multiple ways for people to interact and engage, and then building those into things that the teams can replicate and use super easily. Also love this how to use this template section. We can dig more into that in the panel, but that can be so helpful just to provide some instructions for your team. With that, I'll pass it over to, I think we have Rodney going next. Rodney, would love to hear about your templates and the kind of collaboration systems that you're building out for your team. And you're still on mute.
Yeah.
Rodney.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah. As I was reviewing all of the Figma templates that the that the rest of the joint added, like Brendan and Olivia, I was like, mine are so low tech, but I gotta say they make a big improvement in just how we have worked internally. All of these are internal facing, so I'll just start with this one at the start. It's a one-on-one board, and what this is really just to bring consistency to our one-on-ones, to make sure we're hitting all of these high notes. And the reason that this templating is so useful is because before we just had one FigJam and you were expected to go in and duplicate it, but it wasn't explicit you were supposed to do that. So sometimes you go in and there would just be like someone's update there and you're like getting way too much information. So by making it a template, it forces them to duplicate it to their library, and then you have your own unique instance and you don't need to worry about your template getting overwritten. So yeah, these one-on-one boards just do a really good job of keeping us on track for our one-on-ones. Obviously, sometimes one-on-ones go into different groups or different ways, right? So this is an example about how remote work is isolating. And after that, we just highlighted some goals and we were able to move forward on that. The next one-on-one wouldn't necessarily be reviewing this board. We'd go all in on understanding how we can make remote work feel less isolated, for example. So the next one over is contributing to our design system. So before we had this on a wiki, and let me tell you, just reading bullet points on a wiki, I think we've all been there. It's not the most engaging thing. So just adding a little bit of visual flair to this, it has come a long way, makes it feel a lot more accessible. And yeah, we just have this is a template because for every contribution, we fill this out and mark things as done as we go across. And we have a working area next to it where we can just elaborate on this, sharing all of the deliverables that we call out in this contribution workflow. So this has improved our contributions by just the less daunting factor. We've seen an increase of 300% in 1 year. Just consider adding a little bit of visual flair and being clear about what's a partnership and what is solo work, and goes a long way. And then the last one over here is a project kickoff form. So this one resized a little weird when I pulled it in. So apologies for some of the inconsistency of this, but it is on its own, it's quite a large FigJam. And this was duplicated from our old one to be specifically around our AI work to include prompts and timelines. And really, this is just a dumping ground for all of the information you have about your project. So we send this out. They duplicate it again, so no one's in here overriding the placeholders. And once they duplicate it, they'll fill it out, pass it back asynchronously. We'll review it, and then we'll hop on and fill in some more details to make sure that we understand everything we need to know about a project and to what extent we may consult or we may do some of the design work to help move the project along. So yeah, I've been using these kickoff forms in place of, we used to have wikis to fill out. It had all kinds of macros within it, which can get really confusing when you actually go to the edit mode. So yeah, people are finding this very useful, and it keeps us from overriding the original file. Again, I
Fantastic.
feel like these are so low tech compared to the rest, and these are not available on the community or anything because they're internal facing. But I know Brandon's got some there that you might find useful coming up next.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rodney. And that's the beauty of this. Again, there's no right way to do this, and the fidelity is actually just what works for your team. I love this example of the one-on-one. It's just what you're calling very low tech, but it's very functional and efficient, and just helping you get the information you need for that one-on-one conversation without having to. We would spend a ton of time prepping that ahead of time. And then the contributing work, talk about efficiencies, 300x, 300x, or 300% more. That's fantastic.
Yes,
And I,
like documentation is immediately kills any progress I noticed. So just making it a little visual has gone a long way.
Absolutely. And I love the introduction of the little stamps here. Just such a fun way to do that, along with a little key for that. Great. And then talking about levels of fidelity, we're going to hand it over to Brandon next, who has some very polished and helpful templates to share as well. Brandon, over to you.
Yeah, wow. Thanks for that intro. Very polished. I think ultimately for us, yeah, we started creating templates because we all know that feeling of, okay, I know what I want to do, but do I have the time to make it all? Has someone else done it before? All these questions start flooding your mind if you want to run a workshop or a one-on-one, like we saw before from Rodney. And so I think one of the beautiful things about creating like templates is it's a template. So you take something and then you can modify it for whatever audience you're building it out for. And so we created these two templates because we were having these types of conversations over and over again, and trying to take the last session and then clean it up to be fresh for the next session was like actually quite time consuming. It was a good start, but now having these templates, we can start from scratch and modify them however we need to. So I have two here. The first is a good old fashioned, just like experience map, starting from this side of the experience all the way to this side of the experience, and mapping out all the stages, the steps, the actions required. What are some of the jobs that the user is trying to do, the pain points, and then looks like the bottom of this is cut off, but there's actually a section here which is my favorite, which is opportunities. So sometimes knowing what opportunities lie comes by way of understanding what the pain points are. And so when we're walking through this with partners, clients, even internally for some of our own internal workflows. Oh, nice. Man, Katie, you're on it.
Want it.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Yeah, so this is where you can start ideating, coming up with better ideas, feature ideas, even like rethinking a flow altogether has come out of this. But this is like my favorite part is understanding the opportunities. And this is something that we run when we're looking at something as specific as like an onboarding flow or a growth funnel or something like that. But then if we're thinking broadly, like a big product, especially when we're working with startups, this is a really helpful tool. And then we created another tool, which was based off of a canvas that we found. We do work with established companies, but we also work with startups as well. And sometimes the strategic work we do there is like, how are you going to launch? We're trying to answer that question. And so the go-to-market strategy canvas is just like a really fun activity to get like the best ideas on paper. Obviously, there's follow-on work to happen from there, but this is a great way for us to really thread the needle and figure out like what's the launch strategy that makes sense for this feature or for this product that you're going to market with. And so I can't take credit for this exact template. I think we do credit the creator of this template. Oh, there it is, Brian Kingstein. So there you go. He's credited, but we adapted it and changed a few of the questions. And same sort of thing, we were running these types of activities, hated starting from scratch or having to clean up a previous session. And so we just created the template internally. And then taking that step forward, we've actually shared these to the FigJam community. So if you go in the community and you search, I think, okay, yeah, awesome. So you actually included the cards here, Katie.
Yeah.
Great. So so you can check these out for yourself. We actually shared them because we found that, hey, they're really helpful for us. They could be helpful for other people, and we've had a lot of people use them. So go ahead and take them, steal them, change them, brand them to your own company if you need, but they're available to all of you to use.
Thanks, Brandon. We're getting, you weren't seeing it because I didn't have multiplayer cursors on, but you're getting a lot of fire for those templates. And thank you for publishing those and sharing those. And another great example of different level of fidelity, taking a framework that is established and making it your own, and then templatizing that. So you can have your own flavor of that particular framework for your team. Similar to Olivia, I love the kind of instructions that you all have put in there, of like being very specific about how to do this, and also some really fun tips, which is great, of using voting, some of my favorite features. Such a lovely example. Thanks so much for sharing, Brandon. And as you can see from each of these 3 examples, 3 very different applications of something like custom templates, and all different ways that these teams are creating those collaboration systems for their team, for the customers they're working with, and also more broadly for the community, to think about how can we make these processes more efficient, more consistent, and more just relevant to our team and our style. So 3 wonderful examples, more than 3, I think we have 6, 7 examples here of just different ways that you can go about creating these templates. So hopefully all y'all are inspired now to think about how you might use these templates to create your collaboration system. Now I'm going to dig into the actual tactics of how you can do this. So for this part, I'm going to demo how to do this. I would encourage you for this part of the session to watch along on the Zoom screen share so you can see me do this. I'm going to do this in a separate file, and then you'll have a chance to practice doing it yourselves. So once you've started to think, like each of our panelists did here, of the ways that you can create these templates for your group, the ways that you might use a collaboration system or start designing your collaboration system, then it's thinking about, okay, how do we go about building that template? What does it look like to create a template for our organization? So again, the ones that we recommend creating in FigJam custom templates are things like meeting activities and templates, and then things like process maps and workflows for your group. So I'm going to actually demo creating a template now, but I'm going to leave it up to you all what type of template I create. So come follow me over here and add a stamp. You can pull up the stamp wheel with the keyboard shortcut E, or down at the bottom toolbar here, and add a stamp for the template you want to see me create. So do you want to see me create a template for an intro activity, an ideation, a brainstorm activity, a quick team sync, a quick context, or a retro? So the E, there's a stamp wheel and an emote. The emotes are on the top there to react synchronously, but then you can use a stamp on the other side of that wheel to add a stamp. I'm seeing boats. Brainstorm activity is pulling ahead. I'll give it 1 more minute in case anyone wants to try to skew the results. Team Sync's pulling ahead. Okay, Team Sync. I don't know, it's so close. This is the beauty of these sessions. Y'all are the best. Okay, Team Sync has it. I don't know who's adding multiple +1s, but I'm loving it. And we'll go ahead and create a template for that. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this. And again, this is where I encourage you to follow along on the Zoom screen share, because I'll go to a new file and show you how you would go about creating a custom template. So the custom template publishing is very easy to find. It's just up in the share modal. But first I'm going to show you how you might go about creating that file and then publishing that kind of custom template for your group. So I'm going to head over here to a blank file. Again, follow along in the Zoom for this, the screen share. I'm just in this untitled file, and just any other file, you can start from whatever way you like to start a new file. So you could use FigJam AI, which is in the top left corner here. I could use an existing template that's already built into our organization or from the community. Like I could grab one of Brandon's templates and use that. Or one of my favorite ways is the section templates. This is a relatively new feature, but if you go and build out a new section, you then have these little buttons here to add in section templates. So y'all wanted to see a team sync. There is actually a team sync section template here. So if I want to go here and then I can grab a team sync, I really like the check-in. It's like a kind of like Rodney's one-on-one where you just have a little bit of a check-in for every person on your team. So I'll go ahead and use this. So let's say I have this template, but maybe our team prefers, I want to first, when I'm building out my template, I want to remove any like placeholder content or update any of the content that I want to be more relevant to my group. And if I'm creating this for a specific team, maybe for the 4 of us panelists, I can go ahead and rename this, because if I know that it's always going to be myself, Rodney, Brandon, and Olivia in this meeting, I can go ahead and just update that template to be specific to us. I shouldn't put myself first. Where's my politeness? Okay, let's put Brandon first. Then we can have Rodney share. Then we'll have Olivia go, and then myself. And again, we could switch this up however we want, but you can just go ahead and start customizing it. So the idea here is that when you're building the template, you want to put into the template the way that you want this to be copied every time. So I wouldn't put in too much context. I'm not going to fill in the check-in template, but I'm going to make it custom to exactly what our team needs to make it as efficient as possible. So that way, 5 minutes before the meeting, I could just paste this in and then we're like ready to go for our next team sync. I don't have to fill out everyone's name every time. And then maybe I want to customize these for different colors. Maybe Brandon's favorite color is green and Rodney prefers yellow. So I can really just customize this to be exactly what I want. So again, I'll share some more other best practices in a minute, but the idea when you're building out your template is you're trying to build the framework for the way you want it to look when you place it on the board to then build out the custom content each time. So for our check-in, I'm going to leave it kind of random. I'm not going to put a specific date on it or anything like that, but I'm going to build in the things that we like. Maybe we'll have I love alignment scales. So I'm going to pull in an alignment scale here to get a pulse. One of our teammates, Jeff, does this at the start of a meeting of like, how are we feeling? How are we feeling this week? And then we can say meh or fantastic. And then at the top of every meeting, everyone can just quickly fill out our alignment scale to give everyone a pulse of how we're doing for the group. And again, I did that really quickly. Sorry about that. I added that alignment scale by going the inserts menu here and then widgets. And then I just searched for that alignment scale. Great. So let's say this is the template. So I've taken something that was out of the box. I customized it for our specific team's check-in flow or check-in process. And now I'm ready to save it as a template. A few things that I need to do before I go ahead and save it. The first is that it's always good to name this. So I might say this is our panelist check-in meeting. And then the other thing you have to do when you're going to save your custom template is it cannot be in your drafts. The template has to live in a team that you're going to publish it to. So what I mean by that is when you, sorry, just getting zoom out of the way here. When you go, you can see right here at the top, this file is currently in my drafts. I need to move that into a team so that I can make it accessible to my group. So I'm just going to move this to my getting started project here in my team. And now I'm ready to go. So this file has a name, it has the custom components that I want to be in this template. Now we're ready to publish it as a template. So in order to do that, I will go up to the share button here and go to this option here for publish template. When I do that, you can do what Brandon's team has done and publish to the Figma community at large if it's something that's broadly relevant to everyone and you want to share that with the community. But if you're just looking to publish this to your team or organization, go ahead and click this top option here for publish. Then you can add a thumbnail if you have a separate image you want to add as a thumbnail. Otherwise, it will default to showing us a portion of the board. And then you can fill in more descriptions. So the name will pull from the file name. We can always edit that if we want. And then you can fill in a description that's some instructions for your team on how to use this. Then the last option here is where you want to publish this to. So if this is something that everyone across my Figma organization might find useful, I can publish it to everyone. But if it's just for the panelists, if it's just for my sub team, I can also just limit it just to our team so that other people don't get confused or maybe want it to be more specific to their team. So just choose where you want this to be accessible and then go ahead and click publish. And there we are. So now only one thing has changed about this file. You'll see that it's now mentioned at the top here that this is a template file. If I was to change this, maybe I want to make Olivia's stickies pink. I can do that. And as soon as I make changes to the existing template, you'll see I have this banner that there are changes made, and I can always publish those changes to my file to make updates in the future. So that is how we can create templates. And now I'll show you how you can add those templates. So once the templates have been published, we just did that by publishing our template, then they'll be accessible to your group in the templates area here and in their file browser. So if I go to the templates modal here, now you'll see at the very top, there's my new template. So you can see your Custom templates are going to be at the top of this templates modal, and you can also browse all of them here in your organization template. So I can see all the all the templates that I've published over here. I'm going to go ahead and pull that in so you can all see that template that I just created. So when you bring in that template into your board, you'll just see it will be added onto your board over to the right, and then you can do whatever you want with that. So that is how you publish custom templates. So I'm going to have you try this now. I know this can be a little intimidating, but I want you all to get a feel for what it feels like to publish a template by doing something that's very low lift. So if you're open to it, I'm going to put 1 minute on the board, and I would love for you all to try this. So you can either go ahead and create a new board and just grab one of those section templates like I just showed you, or you can find something that you've been using regularly with your team already and just try publishing that as a template. So what you're going to do is you're going to navigate away from our board here and into your own space if you have one, and go ahead and try that out by trying. And even if you just click share and click that publish template option, just get a feel for what that looks like. And then as you do that, come back with any questions. And once you've done that, go ahead and add a stamp for the type of template you published. So I'm going to go ahead to the top left here and set 1 minute on the timer. I'm going to turn on some music for us to get going here. And I'm going to ask you all to try out what I just showed you. So again, you're creating a board or finding a board you already have in your own space and trying to publish that as a template. So we'll just give this 1 minute, try it out if you haven't already, and come back with any questions you have and let us know what type of template you created. Here we go. So once you've had a chance to just try it out, find that share button, come back and let me know what's the type of template you're going to create. So come back to our board here, add a stamp for the type of template you're going to create. I also see some great questions coming in, so I will get to those in just a minute after we go over some best practices. We're at the end of our minute. I realize that's not enough time to go in and customize your own template and really get it published to your org, but I'm hoping you at least found that share button, that publish button, and have an idea of some types of templates that you might create for your group. So it looks like someone's already come in here and said they're going to create, Olivia is going to create a team sync. Love that. If anyone else has thoughts on the types of templates you might create, go ahead and just add your stamp here. A few questions I'm going to react to just now before we get into some best practices. We have a question, can you only save a non-community templates with a paid version? And yes, custom templates are only available on organization and enterprise plans. If you're on a pro or starter plan, you can always save or create a file and there's just like mark it as a template and your team can duplicate that. So you can duplicate any file up here and then duplicate. So you can use that as a workaround for creating templates if you don't have access to custom templates on an org or enterprise plan. And then we also got a question from Allie about brainstorm activities. Allie, luckily we do have a lot of brainstorm activity templates right out of the box. If you just search for brainstorm, I've created a lot of templates there. And then also, just like I showed you, section templates for team syncs, there's quite a few pre-built activities for brainstorm activities you might use in section templates here. So a few different frameworks for brainstorming, ideating with your team. I use rapid ideation template all the time. So Allie, I would recommend those as starting points for brainstorms. Let's see. Ivan's going to create a project kickoff template. Amy would love to hear if you want to add a sticky or contacts in the chat. Would love to hear about what type of template you're going to create. Can't wait to learn more about that. Okay, we're going to quickly dig into some best practices, and then we're going to turn it over to a panel discussion with our panelists about some of the ways they thought about creating templates. So first, some best practices here. When you're going and creating your template, a few things to think about. First is the scale. We had a great question from Amy about, is there a recommended zoom level of thinking about like how large or small are you creating that file? This is a really good one and really depends on the amount of content you're going to have on your board. So if we look back at the examples that we had here, Rodney had this one-on-one template that was relatively small. It's just a little section that you have a handful of stickies in, as compared to his contributing workflows one is quite large because it has a lot of pre-built context. And then the project kickoff one has even more space for context. So the scale to your question, Amy, really depends on the amount of content that you need to save. You can also take a building blocks approach. So you can save just one section as a template, and then you can add multiple custom templates into your file to build in different activities that you want to have for any given meeting. So that said, when you are building out your template, I usually recommend using a sticky to scale things because you can get the ratios a little wonky if you create your text too big and then the stickies end up looking really small. So when you start out any new file, if you're not starting from a template that's already built out of the box, use a sticky, put a sticky on the board first and then shape the rest of your content around that. If you have other questions about that, Amy, let me know. Oh, Amy already recreated Rodney's one-on-one. Love that. Thanks for sharing that, Amy. Glad it was already useful. Look at this. Great. The other thing to consider is proximity. How are all the elements in the file? Is there enough white space? Are there placeholders where people are going to need add context? Do you have enough space for people to continue building out and customizing that content? And then the last is flow. Are things flowing either from left to right or top to bottom? How are you expecting people to navigate through the file? And is it going to be easy for people to understand? So those are some things to consider. We also have some do's and don'ts for you. Is it easy to use? In this, we recommend building things into different sections. We've been using sections throughout today's webinar to create the flow and sequence of content. Sections you can find in the bottom toolbar here or the keyboard shortcut Shift S. And again, in your template, we recommend grouping things into sections to help people easily remove parts of the file or move things around if they need to. We also don't recommend having a ton of unnecessary kind of elements like highlighters, stickers. It's fun to have stickers. And in the case we saw with Rodney's example, he had a great way that he's using stickers as an indication of the types of solo work versus collaborative work. So use stickers where it makes sense and it adds to the content. But I wouldn't recommend just adding like a bunch of stickers for flair in your templates, because then it might not fit people's style if they're looking to use it themselves. Next, is it credible? So you want to make sure that it follows and also references any frameworks that you're using. So I love Brandon's example where they referenced out to the business model canvas that they were building on top of. Make sure that you're referencing those things when you're building on the content other people have created. Make sure that it feels relevant and feels like it's something that kind of builds on the specific framework that you're using. And then just a few other tactical considerations. I love how we saw in Brandon and Olivia's examples, those instruction panels. Sometimes if you have like you're guiding people through a flow or there's things that a facilitator needs to know in order to use the template, build those things in as instructions. And then a great practice for this is just what Olivia did here, where you have some type of indication that you should delete that before sharing it more broadly. This is meant to be for the person who's like creating and using the template. Then they'll know how to use it, they'll use that, and then they'll remove that after they're done before they share it more broadly. So that's a great way to treat those instructions so that people know that they're easy to remove. And then a few other tactical considerations for you to consider here. With that, I want to dig into the panel discussion. I want to hear from you all about, go back to our panelists and bring you in to talk about like how you're thinking about that. Again, there's no right way to create custom templates. So want to hear from you all on the way you thought about approaching these and building on top of what you already shared about your templates. I'll kick it over to Olivia first. I think you touched on this, but I would love to hear from you about when you recommend creating a template versus just doing something one-off. So when are you turning to your templates? When are you creating those templates versus just doing things in an ad hoc way?
Yeah, so we have a whole, I think about 20 templates. So for us, those were the most popular. So if I have one of those, I'll always start there to see if I have a template that's going to make sense for that. Sometimes I'll even start with one because I like the styling, even if I have to change it to be more of a one-off, I will do that sometimes. But building a one-off board, it will typically be if it's a very specific task that we don't have a template for already. So I'll just create my own structure. And then what we've done is added more templates over time. If we had a bunch of different use or the same use case, we would add it to our template library.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I'm curious, Rodney, to get your take on this as well. You mentioned a few things that like you made more visual from like a documentation format into a FigJam template. Like, how do you think about when to do that and like when it might be useful to have that different visual format?
Honestly, it was just taking stock of the fact that we had to do something. We had to address the fact that we weren't actually seeing many contributions. And so we did some user research, just some stuff on Slack, reaching out to our teams, our design teams to understand what was stopping them. And yeah, the wall of text was considered very daunting. And just by making it a little bit visual, that's really addressed that core issue. But I would say if you're duplicating a FigJam over and over again, that is a good sign. It probably should be a template.
Great rule of thumb. Great. And yes, the wall of text is real. Combat that. Great. Brandon, I want to turn it over to you to talk about how you thought about creating that template for the community and who on the team was responsible for doing that and updating it over time.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty active in the Figma community anyways. And I have my own folder of just cool templates, both for the majority FigJam, but
Yeah.
Figma as well.
Okay.
That I just, oh, this is cool. I want to keep this. So
Oh, nice.
it was, hey, this has been working really well. We should share this. And we
Yeah.
shared it. And then, yeah, we've gotten a lot of great feedback from it. So I think you're actually touching on something which is really funny, which is maybe we should formalize that a bit more. Practices we're using in FigJam or Figma, if just as we saw those other two examples that I shared earlier, if we're using them with our clients and seeing, hey, this is great, then we should probably be a bit more on the ball with sharing it to the community. Yeah, so no one's in charge of it. I think it's just like a feel thing. It's more,
Yeah.
hey, we're seeing adoption internally. Speaking to what Rodney said, which is like, sometimes I actually like writing my ideas down, but
Yeah.
it's hard for people to interact with that and it's less visual. So you have to right size it. But yeah, when we're sensing that this is getting high adoption, then yeah, we should just have a framework that tells us we should share it with the community and other people.
Love that. That's such a good point of right sizing something and just starting with the way that feels right and natural to you, and then making adjustments as you go to collaborate with other people, to make them more visual, to bring in other collaborators over time. I also love how you say that it's not like any one specific role. There's no template owner title. It's not something that's like in
No,
someone's formal job description usually. And it also goes to the fact that a lot of folks view Figma as like just a tool for designers, but we all know that there's so many other people that get value out of it. And it shouldn't just be the designers that feel like they have to have ownership of the templates. It should be accessible to everybody. And anybody can publish those custom templates. And I love the fact that you mentioned you just pull things that you find interesting and save those. That's a great way that okay, anyone can start doing this and
oh
driving value
yeah,
to their team.
there's probably 40, 50 things in there. Some of which I
That's
probably will
great.
never use, but there's a few, even if I
Yeah.
just look at them, I'm like, oh, I should do something like this. It's
Yes.
more like a Pinterest board than anything else. Yeah.
I love that. Olivia, what about you, for you, knowing that your templates are so customer facing and like are specific processes that you're running activities with? Is there a more formal process for you all, and who owns them and how you maintain them over time?
Yeah, so we treat it like any project that we're on. I was
Yeah.
the one who kind of just spearheaded it because I saw a need. So I became like the project lead for it. I brought on another team member to help PM it. And we actually built out a timeline and listed everything out for auditing which ones we wanted to pull in. So we actually built a timeline, had reviews in there because it was so external facing. It was really important that we checked everything, pressure tested it all with internal users, and then actually published it. And as people started using it, have updated since then. So
Yeah.
we have a couple of key team members that were involved in actually making the templates themselves. We actually made them in Figma and then pulled
Oh,
a lot of the elements over. But we needed to brief them on the things that are different in FigJam than Figma, because there's sections and the way that you copy and paste things over. So there was a lot of sharing and collaboration and figuring out what works there. So we did a hybrid model, but yeah, we treat it like any other project just
Yeah.
because it is important to us, and keeping that library updated has been key.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thanks for walking us through that process of how you design them. I want to bring this up next question to Rodney. I know you have shared a lot of different examples, and I'm just curious. And also, I know you create a lot of educational resources for your team. How do you like make sure they're accessible and make sure that your team knows where to go to find them?
Yeah, so it's just part of the communications. So I think one
Okay.
thing often goes overlooked is consistent communications about what's available. And even if
Yeah.
it's repetitive, some people will miss the first or second blast. So just
Yeah.
making sure that you're communicating in Slack, and especially if we've got sign up forms for new projects. So
Yeah.
when somebody signs up on Slack, part of the immediate response is here's the template, duplicate it, or automated response. Go in, fill out what you know, and then book a meeting for us to chat through it, or just share the link back when you're ready for us to review it asynchronously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's if that's for the broader team, and then just for the one-on-one, it's just have it pinned in a Slack chat, for example.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of surfacing it in multiple areas and providing multiple formats for people to give feedback and also engage with the materials. And then, yeah, consistency. I love that. Yeah, so simple, but so
So
important.
much of our job is marketing.
Isn't that the truth? I'm going to bring this last question to each of you. I'd love to just understand who's using your templates most and how do you think about who the audience is for your templates. So we'll start with maybe Brandon. You want to start with this one?
This is a good question. I wish you hadn't asked me first.
Okay.
No, it's fine. I think our templates, yeah, it really depends. So I guess that's the answer. Classic. It depends. If it's like how are we going to organize this design system? That's definitely like designers, and our principal designer here is like
Yeah.
a design systems guru.
Yeah.
He'll use FigJam that way. If it's let's look at the big picture of this project and figure out like what the opportunities are and things we need to strategize on or figure out further, that'll be like a product lead or a project lead, right? Someone
Yeah.
who's be that person on a project.
Yeah.
If it's let's jump in and figure out like a high level brand strategy with a client or a product strategy, that's going to be like a strategist or like myself jumping in and doing something like that. So it really depends. I would say more the collaborative, let's work with the client or work like internally and figure something out.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that'll probably become a template for more than I'm just jamming with people, like more technical. So it's also a sliding scale. It depends, and it's a sliding scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it works today. I do think though some of the more technical ways we use FigJam would probably be good to templatize as we're starting to do it more and more.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I know it can be tough to hear. It depends, but it's just such the truth with templates and each template. Rodney, any other thoughts that you might add?
As I mentioned, a lot of the ones I shared today are just like directly with one other person. So those are definitely the people who are using them. But honestly, I've been on calls where someone is showing a FigJam that they're working through that's similar to what we've shown. And when we tell them there's a template for that, the relief on their face is, yeah, I would just say that comes down to communications again. Had I communicated better, maybe that person would have caught that and saved themselves time. Yeah, that's my answer there.
I love that. Olivia, any last thoughts on that to add?
Yeah, I'd just say like our strategy kind of product owner team members are the ones who use these templates the most, as this is our Figma. We're in here all the time. We use it for our clients, even ad hoc meetings we use it for. So I'd say that, and then you can see like the importance of audience in our templates too, because we are sharing them with clients in many instances. So making sure it's always super polished and easy to use is important for us.
Yes, awesome. Thanks for those thoughts. We do have a few other questions left, just a few tactical things. We had a question from Allie about brainstorm activity, and then a question from someone about design crits. Let's see who wrote this one. Zora. Great questions on those. There are lots of templates that are out of the box. So I shared some of those section templates for brainstorms for Allie. And then to your question, Zora, if you just search in the template, you'll see a bunch of design. There's a design crit actual specific template that was built by our Figma design team and the way they use it for design crit. So check those out, Zora. And then again, I'd recommend building that and then customizing it for the way you all run design crits at your organization, and then save that as your custom template. Great question on that. And then we had one last question from Allie on, it seems like it would be useful to publish specific sections of a FigJam file separately. And absolutely, Allie, I love that. And I've been doing that a lot lately, where it would take more of that building block approach to custom templates. So it doesn't have to be an entire board built out. You could just have one section and save that as a custom template, and then unfold different activities, different sections as building blocks to build out your entire board. So it doesn't have to be a fully robust board. It can be just one section. It can be just a couple stickies. It's kind of whatever components are useful for you to think about as a templatized thing you want to add to your board. I recommend saving that as a template. Great. With that, we are right up against time. I'm hoping we accomplished our goal. I'm going to add a little final alignment scale. If anyone who's still in the file with us wants to let me know, do you feel more confident using custom templates today? Whoops, templates today. Feel free to fill that out on our widget here. So just fill out that alignment scale just by putting in where you are in this, and whether you strongly agree that you feel more confident using custom templates. I hope everyone who's joined us today feels a little bit more confident building out their collaboration systems and starting to try to think about what custom templates you might save in FigJam. I want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you so much, Rodney, Brandon, Olivia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing these great examples and all of your advice on how to think about approaching your templates. Thank you so much. And then thank you to all you all. Thank you everyone who came today. Thank you for those who have tried custom templates, who brought all these great questions, Allie, Zora, all the folks who are with us today. Thank you for Amy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging with our session. A few tactics. Oh, everyone's strongly agreeing. Right. I don't know if you're just trying to make me feel good, but you are. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you all learning and hope you can explore adding custom templates for your team. Thank you everyone so much for coming. Thank you for being here and happy jamming.